Hello and welcome to Live Your Life on Purpose. I'm so happy that you could join me here today for this 40, 50 minutes worth, maybe a bit longer, maybe even 60 minutes worth of exploring purpose and what it is in our lives. Now, if you haven't got a pen and pencil and paper, do grab one because there's a few things that you might want to note down. But I also want to let you know that this is recording and it's going to be up on YouTube within about half an hour, and you can watch it as many times as you want. So you can go back to the questions and any of the points that are really important, but do make a note as we go through. Before we start, I just want to share something with you. Before I started this webinar today, I went to pick an angel card. Now, if you haven't heard of angel cards, they come from Findhorn. They were created about 30 years ago as part of a game called the Transformation Game. And it's lots of different angels and all little different cards, and they're very cute. There's the angel of surrender, and there's the angel of brotherhood, or there's the angel of love, or there's the angel of trust, and there's a whole load of different ones. And I closed my eyes and I picked a card, and really it was about what do I want to give everybody today in this webinar. And the angel I picked was the angel of transformation, which I thought was just wonderful, because this is really about transformation. It is about transforming your life. And my intention for you today in listening to this webinar is to get some pointers, get some ideas, get some insight into the things that you want to do to transform your life. To transform your life into one of finding a reason to get out of bed in the morning, to feel that life is more than just humdrum or kind of by rote. It's about what is it that you're really, really wanting in your life. It's about living your life on purpose. And that's purposefully, as in making choices rather than just letting it float by and another year goes by and another year goes by. And it's also about what is your bigger purpose in this world. It's totally, totally personal. And there is no right or wrong about what your purpose is. It's purely yours. But before we delve into what I call the higher purpose of life, the one that gives us the joy and fulfillment, I want to just look at there's three actual different levels of purpose in life. And they relate to the brain states that we have. We have three levels of brain states. We have our reptilian brain, which is the brain that we kind of came out of the swamp with. That's the instinctual, or what can be called the dinosaur brain. It's the one that keeps us into survival. And then we have the neocortex, which is the rational and thinking brain. And then we have the limbic brain, which is the emotional or feeling brain, or what I call the humanitarian brain. Now, we can have three levels of purpose that relate to these levels of brain states. In our reptilian lizard brain, this is our survival level. It's where we have our fight or flight response. And when we're operating from that level, there's no kind of awareness or consciousness. It's just this subconscious response to the world around us, keeping us safe. Our purpose, when we're in this brain state, is pure survival. And when we're in this state, we wouldn't even consider there might be even other ones at all. It's just about surviving in the world. Now, obviously, to look at other levels of purpose and brain state, we have to have this one taken care of. We need to have a survival level taken care of before we can think of bigger things and more purposeful things in our lives. And that's okay, by the way. I mean, survival is really important. We're here to be on this planet and survive here. But once we've got that bit of life taken care of, we then have the neocortex, the monkey brain, the multitasking brain. And there's a purpose on this level too. It moves us from survival into thriving. So we have a purpose of thriving. And this real brain state really relates to the material world that we live in. It's where we get our drive to achieve, to create and accumulate in the material world. It's the kind of main area of our life that we're taught to kind of think about as we're children. We're taught, our educational system, for example, focuses us into being successful in this area in our life, this purpose in our life. It points us in that direction. And we can spend many, many happy years with this as our main purpose in life. I know I did. I spent my kind of 20s and early 30s accumulating, becoming successful, having a really good job, earning really good money, getting my thatch cottage with the roses over the door, and just really kind of ticking all those boxes that of the things that we should have in life that are going to make us feel good. And they do for a while. And, that's the important thing. We do have that thing. I got my thatched cottage with the roses over the door. And that was fine until something wakes us up. And for me, I just realized that it didn't have a deeper meaning for me. It can be hard to admit that, that we work so long for that thing to make us happy, those things in our life, success, money, achievement, houses, holidays, partners, everything. And we can then have that experience of kind of been there, done that, but we've actually got the wrong t-shirt. It's not right. It doesn't have that deeper meaning. So for many, we set out to achieve all that we set out to achieve, and then we find there's an emptiness in there. And that often moves us into that more emotional feeling brain state, which is often what I call the humanitarian state. There's a client of mine a few years ago was a great example of this. She had done really, really well. She had achieved top notch, literally. She got to the top of her field. She was in her early 40s. She couldn't really go any further. And she sat down one day and she looked at it all, and she was really quite despairing because she thought this was what was going to make her happy. She thought that kind of yay, jumping out of her skin was going to come from doing all these things that she'd done, and she realized it hadn't. And she was quite angry, and that was the moment when she thought she has to look for something else. She has to look for something that felt more purposeful, more meaningful for her. I had another client who was, again, very, very successful, very driven in the world. And then she broke her collarbone and she had to be at home for 3 months. And home was a kind of village community that she'd never really been part of. And suddenly that village community started to come around her. They brought casseroles in the evening. They came and made sure she was all right. They did her shopping for her. They exercised her horse, all different things. And she suddenly realized that there was a whole side of life that she had never really plugged into, and she realized how much she missed community, and that started to become part of her purpose. So there's many different things. There's many different wake-up calls. A friend of mine here in Spain had the most beautiful villa, not that one, but something similar to that. And then a whole load of things happened, weird things like a hotel getting built right next to her house starting to crumble, and then nobody taking responsibility, and life just happened, and she literally lost virtually everything she had. And what was incredible was when I talked with her about it, she said she'd lost everything, but she'd found herself, and she'd found her greater passion and purpose in life. And those moments, whether they're dramatic like the ones I've talked about, or whether that's just that waking up in the morning and going, there has to be something more. There has to be something that makes me feel like I'm contributing in some way, that isn't always just about me, that has a more self-serving side of it too. And that's that limbic state, that's that humanitarian brain. Often purpose has an element of service to it or contribution. It is close to your heart. And it doesn't matter to whom or what you serve. It's not about making some global cause or going out and saving the planet, although it could be if that's you. But it's about the things that are really important to you and your heart. It's often about that way, and how do you serve that? And sometimes when we start to look at the world through that kind of lens, we start to open ourselves up to our spiritual self, the bigger picture of why we are here, because that bigger picture holds something for us. When I say spiritual, I mean it's a very personal thing. For me, spiritual is what gives meaning in your life. It's connecting to who you are, your spirit, your soul, your higher self, just that knowing feeling inside of you. That's, for me, the spiritual side of life. And when we start to look at that, we start to look for what is the bigger picture. And interestingly, even though that slide is a bigger picture of a landscape, It's also about the bigger picture inside of ourselves, a deeper questioning that begins within us. And often when we start that questioning, the first thing we have to do is to stop doing and start being. We have to just stop rushing through our world and getting to the end of it. And we have to start being who we are, connecting with who we truly are. Because your life purpose is not going to have the feeling of doing. It's always going to have the feeling of being. You start being your purpose. So the question is often of, who am I being, and do I like who I'm being? That's one of the things I work with people when I have people on retreat, or I have people come and have coaching with me, or they do the passion test. It's always about, who do I want to be? And that's making a conscious choice about who we want to be. And when we do stop doing and start being, we start to ask the bigger questions like, who am I? And why am I here? What is my life about? And that's when we're starting to search for purpose. And it's often a question my clients are asking themselves, that big yawning space inside of them that has those huge questions. Who am I and why am I here? And what do I need to feel fulfilled so that I feel like there's a reason for this? And all these questions are really valuable. They're huge. Who am I and why am I here are huge questions. And I have to tell you now, you're not going to get one definitive answer. These are the questions that we ask throughout life as we grow personally. It takes a lifetime to answer the questions, and that's fine. But the fact that we're asking the questions is a real huge and wonderful step in our lives, because it opens up to a huge side of ourselves that we've never seen. And we move into that whole humanitarian brain size, and we're no longer kind of looking for that kind of self, I can never say this word, aggrandizement or personal success or riches, although paradoxically they can actually often come when we are on purpose. But instead, we're looking to serve our humanity and humanity in general in some form or other. For some, it might be about what's the legacy we want to leave. It depends where we are in our lives. Often when we get older in our lives, we start thinking, what do we want to leave behind? And that could be with our family, or it could be something within a particular area of work that we're expertise, or it could be something in a greater way in the global cause. But legacies is another part of purpose too. This higher purpose isn't prompted from the mind or from the ego. It comes from our heart and our soul. It's prompted from our heart, and it has a feeling to it. We're going to talk a bit more about that later on, because the heart is your spokesperson for your soul. Just think about that. Your heart is the spokesperson for your soul. The mind is a very useful tool to action ideas and get things going, but it's not where your answers come from. Your answers come from your heart. And when we step back and when we see the world from that humanitarian brain state, when we see that only by serving the whole can we serve ourselves, life completely shifts and changes. Because as long as we're in it for ourselves in our monkey brain, we can't be led by the heart, because our monkey brain is that multitasking brain. We're in thinking. And so we need to step into this next kind of level of our brain state to be able to come from the heart. And just as an aside, we flow between all these three brain states and purposes at different times, even at different times in the day. And that's okay, because when we have something that feels threatening, we will automatically go back into our survival brain and purpose, and we'll react from that space. And a lot of the time when we're busy and we're doing all our multitasking, we're in our monkey brain. And the purpose of that moment is to get stuff done. And then other times we'll slip into the humanitarian brain and we'll look at the bigger picture and we'll tap into our greater purpose. and see what's best for all concerned as well, and what serves the whole. Neither state is any better than the other. They just are. And no one ever stays in one state only. We might like to, we might aspire to be in the humanitarian brain the whole time, but actually that's not how it works. So we will be flowing always between all three, and that's perfectly normal. But our heart and our soul is where we want to start, because our heartfelt purpose comes from when we wake up to that humanity in ourselves, and we want to start to do more than just living in the material world. It no longer fulfills us. It no longer ticks all the boxes. You know, we go out and we get something, we think, oh, now I'm going to be happy. And then, you know, a week later, suddenly we're not happy anymore. And it's like, oh, hold on, what's the next thing? And so that's that moment when we realize that we've got to find something deeper. And it's when we start to feel connected that it soothes our soul. That longing, that feeling inside starts to lessen, and we feel like, yes, you know, we're not so separate in the world. There is a unity, there is a oneness, so we start to come towards that. And there's one point that is really, really important that you must realize, that there's no right or wrong. That's an incredibly important thing, because your purpose is whatever you say it is. It's not imposed upon you. It's not something that you know, it doesn't have to be big or world-saving or lofty. In fact, one of the huge keys to purpose is that it's supposed to be fun. Life is supposed to be fun. Your purpose is to enjoy this journey. And if that includes saving the whales or the rainforest, or helping to build houses or orphanages in Africa, or working with children in poverty just around the corner from your community, then that's great. Just go for it. Whatever it is that feels fun to you. There might be challenges in there. There might be heartache in there, but it has to have an element of fun. You know, and it could be that your purpose is more around your own family, to be a great mum or dad, to be a fantastic friend or a son or a daughter. And it could be related to your work, to make better working practices. It doesn't matter what your purpose is, but it does really, really have to be fun. And I mean that, and I'm saying it even more, it really has to be fun. And it's whatever pulls at your heart, because your purpose nurtures you on a heart level. And it's whatever you choose it to be. It's not necessarily your job. It could be part of your job, but it could also just be all throughout your whole life. So, as I said, in case you haven't got it, it really, really has to be fun. And that's not to say, as I said, that it won't be hard work or challenging or maybe emotional, because your purpose comes from your heart. So it can be all those things. But there's another reason why I am banging on about why it has to be fun. And that reason is it really has to be motivating. And if it's not fun, it's not going to be motivating. It will become a should. And as soon as it becomes a should, that's no good. You know, my life purpose, my number one passion is to empower people to live life to the full, whatever that means for them. And I call that my life's work. And I simply love what I do. I mean, there's bits of it that aren't so fun. All the business side of running my business, that's not particularly my passion at all. My passion is being on a webinar and sharing, you know, what wisdom I can share, helping people on retreats and coaching and all those different things, finding people's passions. I love all that. And the fact that I love all that, and I never ever want to stop doing it, is strong enough that it overcomes all the bits that I don't particularly love. So I need a strong level of passion and purpose to ensure that I do what I need to do so I can continue to do it. So it's not frivolous that your passion and your purpose is fun. If it's not fun, you won't do it. You know, and thinking about it, making it a should and beating yourself up, it just doesn't work. Because it really, really is important that it's never a should. It's never that kind of grumpy little face. Oh, I should be happy, but I'm not. You know, as any kind of good coach will tell you, and you probably do know this really, that shoulds are doomed for failure. Because after a while, there's a rebel inside of us that will rebel against that, and it just won't happen. Your purpose is never a should. It's a great, big, burning desire, and fulfilling it will make you feel certain things on a regular basis. So it's really important that it's fun and it's not a should, because in fact, purpose brings a special feeling to the party. And I want to talk about feelings now, because feelings are the key to what we create in our life. Everything we want to create in our life will always have a feeling attached to it. For example, when I talk to clients about creating the perfect relationship, I ask them to imagine what that person will be like. Write all those things down. And then I say, how will it feel to have that person in your life? Now, because it's not about the attributes of the person or their interest, it's about the feeling they bring, because those feelings create a particular vibration inside us. And the cool thing is, if you're looking for a relationship, if you know how you want your relationship to make you feel, then when you meet someone, when you feel exactly the same feelings when you're with them, you know you've met a match. So to be on purpose in our life, we need to know how it makes us feel. Danielle Laporte talks about core desired feelings, and I absolutely agree with her that the underlying principle is always to do whatever it takes to ensure that you feel these feelings at all times. You see, now my core desired feelings, I'll share these with you. They're joyful, abundant, expansive, and connected. Now, when I look at my life, for example, when I coach people, I consistently feel all four. I'm joyful because I love what I do. I'm abundant in many ways, not just financially, but I'm also abundant because I'm learning and I'm being given insights through the work that I do. I'm abundant in that learning. I feel expansive because there's always new things. There's always those aha moments that we have. And I feel connected because to work with people individually, one-on-one, you have that incredible connection with people. But that's not all the only places that I feel those core feelings. I feel those core feelings in all areas of my life. I'm joyful from the relationships and the friends that I have. I feel abundant in the places where I live, the surroundings I have, the lifestyle I have, the fantastic abundance of hikes on my doorstep. I'm expansive because I've got fantastic like-minded friends and we have amazing conversations and life continually expands and grows. And I feel connected both within and also to people outside of me. So your core desired feelings are really, really key. And so I want you to just think about a question for the moment. And it's one of these things that you can just quickly write down too, so you can, or come back to the replay and really take some time over these questions. But just for a moment, just quickly, I want you to stop and answer just one real question for now. I want you to think back to a time when you were completely fulfilled. Now, you might have a feeling of serving or contributing in some ways, but you definitely felt life was on track. Now, this isn't a cocktails on the beach moment. This is a real moment in everyday life when you felt really fulfilled. Just cast your mind back for a moment and ask yourself, ask your unconscious to show you just one of those moments. And now just ask yourself, kind of close your eyes and look out through your eyes, put yourself back into that moment. What are you feeling? What emotions are present? And just jot down a few words. What are the core feelings in that moment? What does that moment give you? Now, these core feelings, they're the clues to your purpose. They're like those little clouds in the sky. They point in a direction. And you can come back and ask yourself this question and look at quite a few different scenarios. Times when you felt completely fulfilled, when you felt that there was something special going on in your life, when nothing had to change. Because that's really important, to unearth what your core feelings are. Because when you know your core feelings, they're definitely the clues towards your passions and your purpose. Now, your purpose comes from passion too. Passion are huge parts. And your passions are heartfelt. And I do something called the passion test, where we define our top 5 passions. And more often, kind of those passions always seem to go into the purpose. Now, I obviously can't take you through the whole process now, but just one thing that you can think about later on when you're looking over the replay or your notes is that the first thing we do in the passion test is to write out between 10 and 20 things that you'd be doing or being if your life was ideal. Now, sometimes with passions and purpose, we often think that it's going to have to be, worthy. But actually, passions are whatever makes your heart sing. Some people, I take through the passion test, and they think it's all going to be about their business and everything, and they realize it's about friends and family and travel and joy. So your passions can be many different things. It could be living in the perfect home where you feel completely at peace, or working with like-minded people, or writing a successful book. It might be being with animals. It could be being fit and healthy with lots of energy. It could be making difference in people's lives, or creating a lovely, supportive family. It might have something to do with music. It might have something to do with creating a better world. It might be working with a lovely team of people, or traveling to new cultures, or living with that partner in a lovely, harmonious relationships, or something to do with your friends. It can be in so many different areas. Now, some of those things I said might not sound like they point towards a purpose, but you can also dig a little deeper once you understand what your passions are. So, for example, say your number 1 passion was working with like-minded people. You could be asking yourself, what are we like-minded about? What do we feel? What is it where we come from? What do we do? Where's our common purpose with these like-minded people? Things like that can start pointing the direction, because the whole thing about purpose is you want to have all these elements. You've got your core desired feelings. You start to look at your passions. When we do the passion test, we dig a little deeper with the passions. What would I be doing if I was living that as a passion? And that can start to point towards your purpose too. And remember, it still has to be fun. And that's why your passions are so important, because more often than not, your passions embody fun. And so there's the key. So you've got 2 keys. You've got your core desired feelings, you've got your passions, and finding your passions. And your purpose is whatever you decide it is. Don't judge these things that you start to find and uncover. Don't judge your passions. Don't judge your purpose. I've met people who have a huge global influence. That's what their purpose is. It has that huge influence. And I've also met others who has a purpose to focus on creating loving, harmonious, nurturing environment for their family. Both purposes are equally valid, because both purposes touch those people's hearts. So I want to ask you a series of questions now. I want you to get thinking about this series of questions. And like I say, come back to the replay later and you can write them down and take much longer time over them. But I'm just going to give you, 20, 30 seconds for each question right now. And have a look at these questions and just see what starts to get sparked inside of you. So the first question I want you to think about is, what would I be doing if money was no object? Because money is so often the excuse we use for not stepping out, not going forward, not grabbing an idea, not going on with something. So if you were to take money out of the equation, what would you be doing if money were no object? Just have a think about that right now. And this is not a question that says, what would you be doing if you were a millionaire? That's not what this question is about. The question is, if money was no object, in other words, if whatever you decided you wanted to do, some kind of way of doing it financially would be possible. That's the way to look at this question. Have a think about that just for a few moments and start jotting down some answers to that question. What would you be doing if money was no object in your life? If whatever you decided you wanted to do, the money would come from somewhere. No longer an excuse anymore. Just bullet point a few things that come to mind. Okay, next question. If you never retired, what would you want to be doing with your time until the day you die? So many of us think about, yeah, I'm going to work until I'm 65, 67, whatever age you are in whatever country you live in, and then I'm going to retire. And then for some, that's great. They have lots of things they want to do, but for others, that then leaves a whole empty gap. But if you were one of these people who were saying, I don't want to retire, and that's how I feel. I feel I always want to be doing this in some form or another. If you were to be doing things in your life right now, whatever they are, and you never want to stop doing them, what would they be? Just have a think about that. What would they be? What would fire you up so much that you just never want to stop doing it? Okay, next question. What touches your heart? What touches your heart? What do you see on the street sometime that just either makes you incredibly joyful or incredibly sad even? What are the things, the videos on YouTube, that amazing portal of the world? What are the things that touch you? What touches your heart? One of the things for me is seeing old couples together. I don't know why. Maybe because my parents never got that. My father died very young. But what touches your heart? All these things can be clues towards your purpose. Where's that tender part inside of you? Just think about that and jot down anything that comes to mind. Next one. Thinking about your core desired feelings, and you might want to come back to this one, but you can think about the ones that came up so far when we talked about that. What kind of things would give you a constant experience of your core desired feelings? An interesting one. If I think about my core desired feelings, joyful, for example, what makes me joyful? Being around people, talking to people, meaningful conversations, seeing people flourish, seeing people grow. That's not just in my work, That's in how I can be with friends and help friends and support people. So taking each of your core desired feelings, and you want to find about 4 or 5 when you do the exercise. What would give you a constant experience of those feelings? And for now, just jot down a few things. Sometimes when you come at things from a different angle, when you come through the feeling side of things, what makes me feel that feeling? You start to see things that maybe are so part of your life that you've never even thought about them as being passionate or purposeful. Next question. Here's a good one. What fires you up? What makes you want to do something? Again, thinking about things you read in newspapers or you hear on the news or you see on the internet. What makes you go, no, that's just not right. That needs to change. And again, it can be global causes and things like that, but it could also be, I've got a friend who is just passionate and purposeful, my goodness, purposeful, about creating better teamwork within her company. It's just like her number one thing, because seeing miscommunication amongst team just drives her nuts. So it can be anything for you. It can be anything. What fires you up? What gets you on your soapbox? What do you bend your friends' ears about all the time? So they kind of roll their eyes. Here they go again. All good clues towards your purpose. So think about that. What fires you up? What makes you want to stand up and do something? Okay, next question. Here's a real good one. This is a sneaky question, I always think. What would you regret not having done when you're 70? There's a brilliant book by a woman called Bonnie Ware, and she worked in a hospice. And she asked people who were dying what were their biggest regrets in life. And it was really interesting, the answers. They were so heartfelt, all of these answers. The kind of number one was not spending enough time with my family. You know, nobody said, oh, I should have spent longer at work or all these kind of things. They were all things about the heart. So think about you. Think about those things that you're going, oh yeah, one day, that your heart's craving for you to do. What would you regret if you got to 70 and you hadn't done it? Such an important question. And another huge clue towards purpose. It was very interesting. Many of you might have heard of Jack Canfield. He's a very, very successful author in the self-development world, and he did the passion test. And when he did the passion test, he was very successful already. And he was living his top 5 passions. So he worked out what the 6th one was. And it was about spending more time with his family. And he suddenly realized that he wasn't doing that at all. And his family was just growing up and living their lives, and he wasn't part of it. And he completely changed his whole focus in life when he realized that, because he realized that that was going to be a huge regret if he got to 70 and he hadn't got a really good relationship with his family. So even really successful people who are living their passions, there's sometimes things in there that we aren't seeing. And it completely shifted his purpose in life too. So thinking about what would you regret not doing if you got to 17 you hadn't done it. Feel that feeling inside of you when you think about different things. You'll know, because you'll go, oh, it'll hurt. And that's a really good pointer. And that's not something just to leave in a notebook, by the way. Okay, last question. Where do you say, I just love? Where do you say that? I had a really interesting thing today. We were talking with somebody, an acquaintance we knew. We were out for coffee on the beach. And this woman was saying, oh, I run a theatre group. And I heard myself, oh, I just love amateur dramatics things. And I was thinking, that's interesting. I've never done amateur dramatics, but I love speaking. I love doing this kind of thing on webinars. I love being on a stage and giving talks. I love doing workshops. And I thought, yeah, that's just another extension. So where do you say that in your life? Where do you just say, I just love, and then do nothing about it? Where do you experience expressions of love in your life? Really key. Now, we've said this a few times, but passion and purpose definitely comes from the heart. And your mind, by the way, will want to use a whole load of logic in this situation, want lots of guarantees. It'll want to be rational. And by the way, it's supposed to do that. That's what the mind is for. The mind is supposed to think and doubt and doubt and think and make sure that we've got all we need to get everything done. And it's a very, very useful tool. And I say that purposefully. The mind is a useful tool, but it's not very good for decisions. Your heart is much better for decisions. So when we're making these kind of choices in our lives about passions and purpose, we have to ask the mind to kind of take some crayons and go off into the corner and colour in a book for a while so we can get and have a chat with our hearts. And in the passion test, we use a very specific process, and I'm just going to go through that with you to give you an idea, because not only do you use it to find your passions, but you can also use it for any really important heartfelt decision. So to really connect with our heart, we have to connect with our emotional guidance system. And that is our feelings, our physical sensations in our body. We have this emotional guidance system. And as I said, we can use it for all and every decision. It's not just about purpose. And the way we do this is we literally play some scenarios through our mind. So for example, if you had to decide something between A and B, you would literally just close your eyes and imagine A, doing A, whatever A is, but never ever doing B. And just seeing how that feels in your body. Where does it hit you? Where does it touch you? How does it feel? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it hot? Is it cold? Notice the physical sensation and keep a note of it. And then kind of wipe that screen in your mind clean. And then imagine wholeheartedly doing B, but never ever doing A. And notice how that feels in our body. Where is it? The intensity of it. How does it feel? Now, both of them may feel really good, or both of them may feel really bad, or one might feel good and one might feel bad. Now, if one feels good and one feels bad, that's pretty easy. But if they both either feel kind of close on the good and bad spectrum, what you have to do is ask yourself this question: which one feels better than the other? Whatever they are, whatever feeling they bring up, which one feels better? And that's your clue to what your heart is trying to tell you. Which one feels better? I had somebody who came to do the passion test, and he was very much, I don't have any passions really. And you know, you have to write out at least 10 or maximum 20 things. And he got to 8 and he couldn't write out any more. And I went, what are the first 3 things that come to your head? And he just quickly wrote what he thought were placeholders in 9 and 10. And then we went through that process, feeling what was really important for him. And he'd never done anything like that before. And I really kind of helped him just feel what was right, to imagine it, to feel it, to run the thing through his mind. And the fascinating thing was that his top 2 passions were the last 2 things he wrote on his list, which he thought were placeholders. So your heart is going to give you sometimes a very different feedback to what your mind thinks. And he was absolutely shocked by that, because it was things that he did on a regular basis, but he'd never seen how important they were in his life. And sometimes he just didn't do them or didn't focus on them. And then he shifted his life from that point. He ended up moving country. He ended up doing something totally different. But he absolutely got that those things were so important for him. Those were his purpose in life. So your emotional guidance system is really, really important. And that 70 question, by the way, that, if I never did it and I got to 70, how would I feel? That's another one that will give you a heart response, because it's a feeling response. Now, we've looked at core desired feelings, we've looked at passions, we've looked at how different questions of things that touch your heart and fire you up, and how to talk to your heart. And all of those things will start to give you clues towards your purpose. But this is one thing I want you to be really clear on. Your purpose is to be yourself. To be the biggest, greatest, most expansive, most animated version of yourself on this planet right now. In each and every moment. In the present moment, in this moment, because now is all we've got. I can't say this enough. It's like, be you. No one else can be you. You might look at people you admire, but you can never be them. Only they can be them. They're being their authentic self. So your purpose, whatever you choose as an expression of your purpose, is to be yourself in it. It's not about being someone else. It's about being you, to be authentic and passionate, expansive and connected, a full-on version of you. And I can't say that enough. Be that individual person living their life on purpose. Whatever that means for you. No one else can tell you what this is. I can help you find it, but only you can live it. Only you can be yourself, because yourself is perfect as it is. And the purpose is to be the fullest expression of that. As I said earlier, to live your life on purpose has 2 meanings. It's about being purposeful on a daily basis, making conscious choices, always choosing the highest, always choosing the best, always choosing to be in gratitude. Literally being conscious in your life and purposefully choosing. And the other thing is to have a purpose which you go towards. Like mine is to help people live life fully. Choosing whatever your purpose is that makes your heart sing. Another reason for doing this, as if you need a reason, but a wonderful reason for doing this, is that when you do, you start to become an incredible example, particularly for those around you. If you have family, if you have children, you lead by example. And other people will be inspired, because suddenly you will be so on fire. And they'll kind of look at you and go, what are you doing? What are you on? What have you got? And you can go, I've got purpose. And they'll go, I want to do that. I want to feel like that in my life. And that is incredible. That is just wonderful when you do that. So living your life on purpose is incredibly joyful for you and joyful for those around you. Now, before the webinar, I had a few people send in a few questions, and I just want to quickly answer those because I think they're really poignant questions. And then one of the questions was what if I don't have any passions? And The truth is that we all have passions, but sometimes we just don't see them because we get caught up in the everyday living. And the story I told a bit earlier about the man who didn't think he had those passions, and then those last two ended up being his top two passions. That was a really good indication of the fact that passions get lost in everyday life, particularly when we're living the shoulds of everyday life. You can't be passionate about something you don't know. So your passions will be in your sphere of awareness somewhere. They just won't be your pinpoint focus. And that's one of the reasons we do the passion test, is because you want to focus on what your top 5 passions are. And your passions are so much your key to your purpose. So you do have passions, even if you might be sitting there thinking, I'm not passionate about anything. Believe me, you do. They are there. We just need to unearth them. And another question that came in from somebody was that they feel that they have too many passions and they get overwhelmed by their passions. And this is quite common for some people. You kind of have two ends of the spectrum. You've got people who have nothing, people who have too many. And interestingly, the people who feel they have too many passions, it can be a way of self-sabotage. I'll be passionate about so many things that I don't have to focus on anything, and therefore I don't actually have to commit to anything. You might recognize that, maybe. See, what happens is that, and I had somebody once who came to do the passion test, and she wrote me a list of 63 things. And of course, nothing was happening in her life, because mentally, we can only focus on 5 to 7 things at any one time. So if we've got 63 things that we're trying to focus on, then we're actually never going to focus on anything long enough to make it happen. So if you feel you have too many passions, you need to hone them down to this top 5 or 7 for you to be effective. Because when you start focusing on those top 5 or 7, the other ones start to get a look in too, but they don't get in the way. And also, when you have your top 5 or top 7 passions, and you start moving those into the purposeful area of your life, then you can't feel overwhelmed. See, a lot of people feel that they have to have lots, and they feel if they focus down on only 5, oh, but what happens to the other ones? And what if they're the wrong 5? And I'm always saying to people, it doesn't matter what your passions are. It doesn't matter what your purpose is, as long as it makes you happy, as long as it's fun. Because that's the key of life, to feel motivated and fulfilled and happy and have fun. It really is about that, whatever that means for you. And so if you are ticking those boxes and having your core feelings tick, who cares about the other things that haven't yet been done? That's just a way of making sure nothing happens. So focus in, focus in. Find your passion, find your purpose, find your core desired feelings, and you can shift life from there. So I want to give you a sneak preview of a Christmas offer that I have on. It's about the passion test, because as we've seen, purpose and passion are completely together. So I'm offering a 2-for-1 offer. So you can give yourself the passion test, and you can give a friend or a lover or a family member or somebody you work with that feeling of passion for Christmas. It's a great Christmas present. I mean, what better to give somebody a feeling for passion? It's an individually facilitated passion test with me on the phone. It's over 2 75-minute sessions, and it will really help you start to find your purpose and start to move forward. I always do the passion test with people, either individually or part of the coaching that I do with people, or even part of the retreats that I offer. But what a great present for you and for them. So if you want to do it, you can find out more. You can give me a call on the number that's up there right now, which is an English number, +44, and that's 0203 239 6155. Or you can just email me on the emails that I've got, jessica@jessicamcgregorjohnson.com. Pop and have a look at the website. There's a thing about the passion test and the different things that I do. And if you're interested in giving passion to yourself and a friend for Christmas, that offer is open till the 30th of December this year, 2015. If you're listening to this after that date, give me a call anyway. So anyway, I really have enjoyed doing this website for you, this webinar for you. I hope that you have got that transformational insight, those ideas, started to look at those things, please do come back and listen to the replay. Take those questions and dig a little deeper. And if I can help you in any way through the passion test or anything else, please do get in touch and go out there, be that wonderful shining example and live your life on purpose. Bye.